Hi, I'm John Maxwell. When the top companies in the world are looking for trainers, speakers, and coaches, there's one name that stands above the rest, and that's Maxwell Leadership. Our certified team members have gotten proven results for companies all over the globe, and our reputation, I'm proud to say, is second to none. Some of our members have risen to the top of their profession, including the one you're going to meet today. I proudly introduce you to my friend Bob Fabian Zinka.
Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If you need to develop into a better leader, this podcast is for you. If you want to achieve a greater level of success, this podcast is for you. His mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell, said it best: everything rises and falls on leadership. We hope to inspire you today and provide you with an insight that has the potential to positively impact the trajectory of your life. Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast.
Lesson 4 brings us back to values, but connects them firmly to action. The founders laid out their principles: liberty, justice, self-governance, and then they acted decisively.
They didn't just talk about violations by the crown, they declared independence and prepared for war. The action followed the principle.
And that's critical for leadership integrity. You have to define your non-negotiables, your core values, and when those lines are crossed, you have to act. Otherwise, the principles are just words.
Talk is cheap, basically.
Exactly. Integrity builds trust, and trust is everything. If your team sees you compromising on stated principles when things get tough, that trust evaporates instantly.
Okay, but let's make this real. Imagine a leader sees a clear violation of principle, maybe unethical behavior. Cutting corners on safety, but acting on it means, say, losing a major client or angering a powerful figure. That's immense pressure. Where does the strength to act come from?
It has to come from focusing on the long-term cost of inaction. Losing that client might hurt now, but losing your team's trust because you compromised your values, that's potentially fatal to the organization's health down the road.
It's about the corrosive effect of inconsistency.
Yes. The source references James 5.12, essentially. Let your yes be yes and your no. Radical consistency. Your team needs to know that your principles aren't conditional.
So the principle isn't just a guidepost, it's a commitment. It binds the leader's actions, and that predictability builds psychological safety for the team.
Beautifully put. If you say safety is number one, then every decision has to reflect that, even when it's inconvenient or expensive. Let your team know what your non-negotiables are. That vulnerability, that clarity, builds incredible trust.
Lesson 5 feels like it circles right back to that core idea of aspiration. The American experiment, trying to live up to all men are created equal, has been a long, hard struggle, generations long.
Absolutely. Nearly 2 centuries just to get to the major civil rights legislation. That kind of sustained effort requires incredible resilience. And the fuel for that resilience, the source argues, it's hope.
We saw that with Douglas and King, right? Acknowledging the grim reality, the failures, the hypocrisy.
But never giving up the belief that the promise could still be fulfilled, that the nation could live up to its creed.
Is hope then a leadership strategy? Or is it just about managing emotions?
I think it's absolutely strategic. Hope isn't blind optimism. It's not ignoring the problems. It's the deep conviction that despite the current difficulties, the mission is still worthwhile and ultimately achievable.
And the leader's role is to communicate that conviction.
Constantly, especially when things are tough. When a project hits delays, when funding gets cut, when morale is low, the leader has to be the keeper of the hope. If the leader gives up, the team follows.
It's like you have to hold both realities in your head at once. Acknowledge the struggle is real, but keep pointing towards the possibility of success.
Think about running a marathon, right?
Right.
At mile 20, everything hurts. The finish line seems impossibly far. Hope is what helps you break it down. Just get to the next water station, just keep moving while still holding on to the vision of crossing that finish line.
The source mentions Isaiah 40.31 about renewing strength.
Soaring on wings like eagles. It's that idea of finding strength even in exhaustion, fueled by the belief in the ultimate goal.
So a practical tip for leaders listening. If your team is feeling beaten down, maybe share a story.
Yes, a story of perseverance. Maybe from the company's own history, maybe a historical example. Remind them, we've faced tough times before and we got through them. We can do this too.
Lesson 3 gets into the nitty-gritty of execution, building coalitions. Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, they weren't dealing with a unified bloc. They had 13 colonies.
All pretty suspicious of each other, often with competing economic interests, different cultures, different priorities. Getting them all to agree on something as radical as independence? That took serious work.
Negotiation, compromise, finding common ground where it wasn't obvious.
Absolutely. And that's leadership, right? Finding a way to frame the mission so that everyone, even with their different perspectives and goals, can see how they benefit from the collective success, how their interests align with the bigger picture.
The source mentions the actual editing process of the Declaration as an example. Compromises were made.
Yes, famously, language condemning the slave trade was removed to appease Southern colonies. It highlights the messy, difficult reality of coalition building for a greater, though perhaps imperfect, immediate goal.
Okay, but here's the pushback I often hear in, say, business settings. Bringing in all those diverse stakeholders, especially the ones who might disagree or slow things down, isn't that inefficient? Don't leaders need to move fast?
Ah, the classic tension. Speed versus resilience. And I think the lesson here, especially in high-stakes environments, is that resilience built through consensus almost always wins out over fragile speed.
Explain that. How does consensus build resilience?
Think of it like that cord metaphor the source uses. From Ecclesiastes, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. A decision forged through negotiation, incorporating different viewpoints, is tougher. It's already stress-tested.
Whereas a decision made quickly by a small, homogeneous group?
Might be easily snapped when unexpected pressure hits, because it hasn't accounted for those other perspectives or potential weaknesses. Building a coalition isn't just about being inclusive. It's strategic risk management.
So actively seeking out dissent isn't just tolerance, it's intelligence gathering, finding your blind spots.
Precisely. Who are the people you need at the table? Specifically because they challenge your assumptions. Those challenging voices are often the ones who see the iceberg before you hit it. If your team sees you compromising on stated principles when things get tough, that trust evaporates instantly.
Okay, but let's make this real. Imagine a leader sees a clear violation of principle, maybe unethical behavior. Cutting corners on safety, but acting on it means, say, losing a major client or angering a powerful figure. That's immense pressure. Where does the strength to act come from?
It has to come from focusing on the long-term cost of inaction. Losing that client might hurt now, but losing your team's trust because you compromised your values, that's potentially fatal to the organization's health down the road.
It's about the corrosive effect of inconsistency.
Yes. The source references James 5.12, essentially, let your yes be yes and your no. Radical consistency. Your team needs to know that your principles aren't conditional.
So the principle isn't just a guidepost, it's a commitment. It binds the leader's actions, and that predictability builds psychological safety for the team.
Beautifully put. If you say safety is number one, then every decision has to reflect that, even when it's inconvenient or expensive.
The practical challenge here is tough. Define maybe the top 3 principles that actually guide your leadership decisions, the ones you'd risk something for. And the final lesson, lesson 7, brings us right back to the beginning. The ongoing expansion of that aspirational creed, all men are created equal, became the lever used by suffragists, civil rights leaders, everyone fighting for broader justice.
Which means the work is never finished. Inclusion isn't a box you tick, it's a continuous, active process.
A journey, not a destination.
Exactly. An inclusive leader is always looking for ways to expand opportunity, to bring more voices to the table, to create an environment where everyone feels they belong and can contribute fully. The moment you think you've achieved inclusion is probably the moment you start sliding backward.
The source references Galatians 3.28, this idea of fundamental unity beyond distinctions. How do leaders move inclusion from feeling like a compliance task, something HR handles, to being seen as a core driver of excellence?
By focusing on the results. Diverse teams, where different perspectives are genuinely welcomed and debated, consistently make better decisions. They identify risks homogeneous groups miss, they innovate more effectively.
So inclusion isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do for performance.
Absolutely. A leader committed to this actively scans their team, their meetings, their processes, and asks, whose voice isn't being heard? Who's being marginalized, maybe unintentionally? Where are our blind spots because certain perspectives are missing?
It's a proactive search, not just waiting for problems to surface.
Yes. If you're not actively working to counter historical patterns of exclusion and amplify marginalized voices, you are, by default, allowing those patterns to continue.
So the final practical step is small but continuous.
Take one concrete action this week. Maybe it's deliberately calling on the quiet person in a meeting.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our channels and come back for more wisdom nuggets on how you may develop into a better leader and achieve greater levels of success. Leadership is the most critical skill. The world will always need leaders to lead others, deploy the next disruptive technology, or execute a business strategy. You may as well decide on counting yourself among the 21st century leaders. See you right here next time on the Leadership and Success Podcast with Coach BZ.